All right, I think we're good. All right, guys, we're back. It's been another exactly 7 days since you heard from us last.
Exactly. That's why we've
got this. It's this fine skill of time traveling we've been doing now. It's like on.
You can tell from my hair.
What is the? It's on Interstellar, where we're like.
Yep.
We are the. We've been away in space for a long time, so it's only been a day for us. But you guys have been gone for a week.
But at least they use Dylan Thomas as not go gentle into that good night. So
that's right.
That's my tattoo on my ribs, by the way.
Yeah, I always thought about getting like words or anything, but I'm like, it's either got to be, I got to keep my body pretty tight, or there's going to be some pages missing.
You know what's funny is the one time when I showed the tattoo first, I don't know, go gentle into that good night. All age should burn and rave at close of day. Guy's like, that's Interstellar. No.
Yeah.
No, that's Dylan Thomas, and
I think that's the equivalent of saying, yes, written by the great Matthew McConaughey.
That's a little bit of how you felt.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Interstellar. No.
Yeah, I'll give it to him.
Yeah.
But today we actually had an interesting day today. I was you were in Amsterdam, but Kayla and I were training.
No, I was
you were
somewhere. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you weren't in Amsterdam. That's where we're going tonight. You were just away, but Kayla and I were training, and we get this message from Julian, like, so the train is fucking delayed, totally not going to make it back. We have a mentoring call.
Time, yeah.
And then, so it was like, you guys are going to have to start the call. I was like, wait, but I can communicate in this format where there's just cameras, and it's still a conversation.
I figured.
The mentoring call concept I fucking hate. I do it and I can absorb information that way. But you're really good because you do seminars and stuff, I think, has probably honed your skill of talking to a vacuum. But those always, even as engaged as the audience is, it still feels to me, because of the delay, I'm just looking at blank faces. And you say a thing,
it's
and
a skill.
The delay in the response matters too. Like,
it's a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a skill I have not honed.
You learn with a delay and all that stuff. But yeah, I knew I was going to stress the fuck out of it. So Kara was saying, what do we talk about? I'm just like Tyler
talking. It actually worked really good. She actually started the whole thing and moved along really, really, really well, and it did good.
It's a good woman.
To where then I got segued into something I could work with. So she did good. You got a good one there.
I have a good woman there.
She'll be back one of these days. I promise.
She's actually taking Yaya to a haircut today.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We might be the second one in the last 12 years.
By the way, I heard there's a wealth of haircut options right now that Yaya is considering, including color.
Yeah, the color.
And
because I happened to promise that 4 years ago, and she never let it go. A strand, by the way. But yeah, because the last time she cut her hair herself, she got pissed, and she got herself what I call the church bell haircut.
Oh boy!
It's like, were you shooting for Princess Leia stuff? Or, like literally, it goes like this, and then it goes out, and then like a church bell, I swear. So I made fun of her a little bit. I am not always the nicest.
We can't win them
So
all.
it grew better. So now, because at some point she shaved her head too when she was in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So now everything is growing back. The hair is not a church bell anymore, but it's still unruly.
Yeah.
And so Kara is doing mom's job and taking her to a haircut. So there we go.
Good deal. So I do think we should go into what you were doing this morning a little bit. So the reason you were gone is you were at the
Olympic Center.
Yeah. For which country?
Dutch. So the Dutch Olympic Center.
Okay.
It's the center they use. Their biggest thing is Winter Olympics, because the number one sport here is speed skating, like ice speed skating, and then that short lap thing, and that's they win like all the time. Like they are extremely good at speed skating. Like that's what they call ice skating here, but not like
Yeah.
It's what they mean by ice skating here is the speed skating. And they rule that basically. They're many world champion, and women, men. Ice skating is a big thing in Holland. It's a long tradition. So they have a Olympic center here. So I get there, and I swear the thing is massive. They have a track that is I think it's a 400-meter track, if I'm not mistaken.
Of ice.
But
wow.
It's the size of a track and field stuff. So like you have all the stuff in the center.
Yeah.
It's at least as big as those cyclodrome. I think it's a 400-meter lap. There's a woman from Czechoslovakia who never lost a 5K ice
Yeah,
race.
it's like kind of like the mid-distance ice race.
So the 5K, right? She's never lost one. She lives there because that's the only place in Europe where she can train. Because it's that big.
That's
like
crazy.
to give you an idea, they have that, and then next to it they have the ice hockey rink where the national team plays, and then all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's the small space.
That's a small space.
Crazy.
That thing was massive. Like I think it's a track and field stadium basically. The thing was huge, and then on top they have all the offices around, so the view was awesome, and then they have all the lifting stuff as well.
Cool.
And so I got to visit the whole thing because they want me to start working with them.
In what context they want? I mean, my question is, if I was I mean, it sounds like a pretty established Olympic program, right?
Oh, no, by the way, it's not just ice skating. There's also gymnastics.
Yeah.
They have so the other because they have this stadium and then they have the one next to it, of course, which is for soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gymnastic. So it's basically the Olympic center.
Yeah. My question though is so they obviously there's a lot of resources at their disposal. They're doing many things, have for a long time, right? I want to know what they thought you were going to do.
Yeah, so they basically those guys that have the stadium, they are facilitators. They get coaches and athletes and link them to specialist physios, to strength and conditioning, to specialists, so that basically the whole system runs smoothly. And they want to do better always, so they also have the kid development system
like
is out of that place. Yeah,
development.
youth athlete is out of those centers as well. So they get the best athletes in Holland, and so they're always trying to be better. Obviously, what they cannot do right now is integrate everything. Like one of the main points we were talking about is like, do you think, for example, nutrition, movement, strength and conditioning should be the same coach? I could tell that they're running into a very specific issue, and they're starting to understand that there's a difference. Let me put it this way: there's a difference between specialization and fragmentation. Yeah. The world of athletics is run by academics a lot of time when it comes to strength and conditioning. There's all the PhDs, but those stuff are so specific, they're fragmented. Like they basically all those, not all academics, by the way. I'm just saying, like the world of academics is a world that exists in a vacuum.
And I think it's important though,
in isolation.
That in order to, and I think studying specificity is important because that's how you get the details, right?
Specificity, not fragmentation.
Exactly,
difference.
but by its nature, you got to boil things down to what the one thing you're looking at, and then you can lose context pretty quickly.
And you do lose context. So what the problem they're having is they're having that specialist and this specialist and that specialist, but then when you have all that, who integrates all of it? So now basically you have a coach per thing, and then they basically barely talk, so you have so much is being lost in translation, and the athlete end up not getting really what he needs because the same injury keeps happening, that the physio keeps fixing the same injury, but who's in charge of making sure it doesn't come back? Yeah. That's the strength coach, but the strength coach is doing the squat program, he's not doing, and so you're having all, and then they don't necessarily talk to each other because human beings, and things like that. So what they were, I think, interested in the StrongFit system is to be able to integrate all that knowledge into something that can be used in a practical way with athletes.
Yeah, and that's, if you look at this, like in this situation itself, if I had to design it, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I'd have been like, well, I want a guy who's really good at getting people strong, and I want someone who's really good at nutrition, and then I want a specific, say, gymnastics, just a gymnastics coach, and then bing bang, and then you need real good physio,
a shrink, and then a really good physio, and then a sports psychologist for whenever they burn out.
And like we've talked about before, I think any system is going to start to perform certain functions, right? Meaning, in this system, I have a guy whose job is to get these people strong. The problem is, if he's doing a good job and that's his only job, it's going to come at the expense of other things. I'm not saying that's the case here, but like anything, if he's going to maximize how good he is at that one thing for these people, all of a sudden it starts to create problems for these other things.
Or maybe it doesn't apply to the other stuff.
Yeah. Like, or it works against.
Because they had that with the swimmers. Yeah, swimmers, like the dude was trying to say that in order to do a better, like jump in the water, a better dive in the water, like you had to have specific things. So he started to change the squatting patterns and this and this and this, where that's not your job.
Yeah.
That is not what you do. Like your job is make them better athletes, or actually make sure they don't break, or like the repetitive use injuries, all the stuff. Anyway, so also, like, you have to understand, like you put a bunch of specialists in one place. Egos run high. People are to prove that they are more right than the other. Like, oh, come on, this is what happens. So now they are basically, so that center where they have all those specialists, all that knowledge, and not being applied to the person who should be getting it, which is the athletes. That's a little bit the problem that I see with academics in sports and in the fitness industry, is it becomes about being right, and at the end, the person who we're supposed to do it for, which is the athletes, gets basically the short end of the stick, where it's about a bunch of egos talking about themselves instead of what works for the athlete. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the stuff that obviously is not working for an athlete or for athletes in general, and yet the conversation is about like something that big, where 84 versus 85%, where basically they're just 4 guys in a room masturbating in front of an egg, talking about 84 versus 85%. In the meantime, I'm like, but the guy can't do the technique anyway. Oh, the guy's a fucked up shoulder, so who cares? Can we, you know what I mean? Like, so it becomes away from where it should be, which is a human, toward that science in a vacuum, that science in isolation. But because that's what the academics world is science in isolation, which is necessary to become very specialized. But at some point, you have to get all this and make it into something that can be absorbed by the athletes and by the coach. And most of the time, those are craftsmen and craft women. Athletes and coaches are craft people, right? They're artists. They're people that can feel the stuff and know the movement. And so you have craft people here, you have the scientists in isolation there, and the connection in between the two is super hard. So you need someone who understands the athlete side and the coach side. You need someone to understand the academic side and the science. There are apparently very few people that can do that. So I think that's what they wanted to talk to me.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. We haven't even talked about that in any sort of conversation.
And by the way, so my first conversation will be with the gymnastic coach, and then at the last Olympics they got a gold medal on the beam. On the beam, that was the first gold medal ever for Holland in gymnastics. Wow! Came from the women's side. Yeah, I thought it was cool. So I get to talk to that coach. I was like, bring it on. So that should be very interesting, because then I can talk about emotional mapping and then tension over position and all that stuff. Tension over position, there's something for it. That's a big one, and yet it's not being talked about. And prevention of injuries, that's the gap between the strength conditioning coaches and the physios, it's tension over position. They both teach position.
And honestly, as the expression of athleticism is always position, because it is an end goal. And granted, this was years ago, but playing basketball, football, those things, I don't know that I was ever taught about what muscles should be used to do what thing. It was stand this way, get your ass over there, and get your ass back.
And then hopefully you're an athlete that is talented enough that you know how to do it naturally.
Yeah.
And if you're not, well, that's your problem.
And we mentioned before that athleticism is really your ability to compensate and improvise. But it also is important to note that the best athletes that make it the furthest very often are there because they can adapt to injury, like literally their ability to, this muscle's not working and still get the fucking job done, or something hurts, and I can adapt physically around it and still produce. They're the best at that, which does mean that their deficiencies get fucking really crazy, because if Steve walking down the road can't find his hamstrings, but Steve doesn't train or do a fucking thing, like his issues will express themselves in a very different way.
But not that,
but when you have a person who they can get so far overcompensated.
Which I don't know if I remember that. He was an LA Clippers forward, and I always remember that. He goes up for a layup, goes like this, lands on one leg, and then the knee fucking buckle completely, tore everything. And you see it go like this, and you go like, oh, dude.
Do you watch those things?
No.
Okay.
When I was watching the game.
I literally can't. I know people. I know people. I think they're fucking
Richard
psychopaths.
sent them to me.
Richard likes that stuff.
He sends them to me all the time.
Oh, the bone thing. Those things don't work.
Stop showing me that.
Yeah.
Like the powerlifting fails. Like, I don't want to see a guy imploding under the weight.
Oh, it makes me.
Those are gnarly.
I will tell you this. You want to learn a really interesting thing about your nervous system. Watch how you feel when you see somebody's knee go, or even better, if you watch somebody, like, say it's not graphic, but somebody doing some skateboarding trick off, say 10 feet in the air, and they fall. And the moment they hit the ground, pay attention to what your body does. Because I will watch that shit on Instagram, and immediately it's, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I have the same pit in my stomach like when I look at heights or shit like that.
That is not a part that I can control at all. It's like,
I do not
that's
like
off.
it either.
That's,
but for example, like that guy, maybe if we had trained him to use the proper muscle when he lands, he wouldn't have buckled his knee. So that's part of performance as well. Being able to stay not even injury-free, like contusion-free in that sense, you know, like maybe the lessening of the damage every time you jump or land, that's part of performance as well. So sometimes it's not just like the, you know, jumping higher or faster and everything, that's part of performance, but so is the capacity to use the right muscle. That's a skill that cannot be ignored.
And that's the skill that's going to keep you in the game longer, and longer progress is overall better.
And longer practice, and better practice, and more time and attention. And so none of that performance stuff can be achieved without, everything is a craft, everything is a skill, right, in sports. So you need time to hone it. And if you break, then you can't practice your craft, you can't get better at it. There seems to be a problem with that.
Yeah, the simplest way that I've found too with the tension over position thing is, as a large person who's been large for a long time, I'm pretty susceptible to lower body joint issues, generally speaking, just wear and tear, impact. And what I've learned is I take these two very simple things, like walking or riding a bike, and pay extra attention to how you walk and how you ride the bike, because it's honestly, it's going to sound so, to just pick up your foot, fall for it, put it down. You can very easily do that without using much muscle, and you're just clunk, clunk. Exactly. Your joints can support you. You stack them right.
On the bicycle, you can use your quads or your glutes.
Yeah,
or your hammies.
And when I cycle all the time in the beginning, I literally, my VMOs can work, but it mostly feels like I'm just pushing that thing with my fucking kneecaps.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, my shit hurts.
The patella tendon was not happy on my right leg.
And the only way that I figured out how to make that better was actually just out of going long enough where I was just really fucking tired and my shit was sore. And I'm like, and then I realized, like, I'm biking and not using my ass, not even one bit, like no glutes, no hamstrings in this. And then all of a sudden, so that was only really a matter of me not dying and wanting to throw up.
Yeah, exactly.
And but that is that alone is, think about the difference in wear and tear over your entire life. Like try and walk with, use muscle to slow you down and produce forward.
Right
Pay attention to it, because I don't know, and maybe most people just do it right normally, and I just don't. But
no, because I've seen running workshops where people, you could tell, were blowing up their backs, like, so they do it at a low volume or high volume, but like low intensity with weight or whatever. So they didn't pay the price right away, but in a few years, you know where that's going. Yeah, but that's an issue. Like that whole science in isolation, I believe, is starting to turn into a major problem. And I'm not criticizing academics, I'm criticizing the system, because science in isolation is the academic world. Because some people need to take something
the only way you're going to get that far. Exactly. I mean, that specific is that. But
we have to recognize that the academic world is not the most practical world. Like I talk to people, I reach clients coming from business school, and they say like some of the stuff they say is outrageous. But you learn accounting, you learn all the number stuff and everything. But they always say they get 10%, or they get 10% of what they learn in school that they can use in business, because none of it is applicable. It's like they say you can, like any business can generate unlimited amount of debt, stuff. I mean, like ridiculous ideas, like that only works in the academic world. And you see that often.
Yeah.
And I think it's hitting the world of strength and conditioning at the expense of the craft.
Yeah.
But that's that conversation we had of anecdotal evidence being considered a dirty thing, where it's actually the only way you can learn skill.
Yeah.
And so the problem too is now you have a lot of coaches that are starting to get a bit, I don't know if it's arrogant, but they're basically condescending assholes out there that have read 3 studies and think they understand the scientific process, and then they start to argue semantics left and right.
The semantics argument is the thing that makes me the craziest. And because words are fucking pretty incomplete form of communication.
Especially when it comes to a movement.
Yes.
Like the words itself, who gives a shit?
You're just trying to put a label on a thing.
And you're trying to win an argument.
And I noticed, and you had been on Mike's podcast, but Mike Teixeira just moved to Holland about the same time you did. He had posted something yesterday that I thought was really interesting.
Can you explain who Mike Tosher is?
Yes,
Because it's
yeah,
important.
because Mike runs, I believe it's Reactive Training Systems. Mike's powerlifting is his game.
He was a world champion.
Yeah, and Mike has been, I think, as far in every direction in that sport as you can be, to injured, to super strong, but in general, Mike is, I would describe as a very, very, very measured and cerebral coach.
He has the most world champion out there right now, I think.
27
yeah,
world records he's coached people to.
Oh yeah, and he has the best women lifters, like almost all of them. He's also, if I'm not, does he have a PhD in philosophy? If I'm not mistaken?
I don't know, but it would not surprise me.
If I'm not mistaken, he has a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
So he's very much an academic type.
And because of that, his system is this combination, data. But he also has kind of spearheaded the RPE, which is, if you're not familiar, it's rate of perceived exertion, which means he doesn't want you to go in and hit 85% for whatever. He wants you to hit a number that's going to be at RPE 9, which means like if you had a gun to your head, you might get one more rep, or so he'll define sets, but you have to adapt it to who you are that day, which is extremely important. But he builds his whole system.
Something the Chinese do as well.
And it is just data, and it's beautiful. The guy's got charts that blow my mind. But all that information, science, and experience in the background, I don't ever hear him argue semantics. I don't ever see him get married to something that he's open-minded fully. But what he had talked about was pretty common concept among very salesy, I would say fitness DVDs, if you will. The muscle confusion, which of course is fucking dog shit, I guess, based on that terminology.
No, it's bro science.
Yeah, but you're arguing what the
what
the
his
words
point
are.
was exactly.
Yeah, and his point though was that he said, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. He said, but the issue is muscle confusion, remove that phrase. It really just means variation. That's what they're doing when they're saying they're going to confuse your muscles. It's variation. So let's remove the muscles from the equation. What does this variation do? If I'm going to have a variation on a lift, it's a new stimulus. If I gave you the same 5 movements to do as accessories for every fucking training session you do, at some point, that's when you can tune it off. You're less engaged. You're just checking boxes.
You're just tuned it off. So so that was the point, right?
Yep. And his point with all of it was, so if I were to change up the stimulus, if you will, yes, changing different angles, different muscles, that does matter, I suppose. But he said it really is that now this person has to pay extra attention.
Has to be present in the set.
And that's what the most important.
Exactly,
thing.
that's where the difference comes from.
Yeah.
So Buddy understood that that's what basically muscle confusion came from, the idea that it works because the person has to be present. So
it's just shitty words. That's
yeah,
all it
okay.
is.
Some people might say the muscle, by muscle getting more confused, he works harder, and so here comes those fucking conditioning assholes coming saying, well, studies have proven that you can't confuse the muscle or this or that. I'm like, that was never the fucking point.
Yes.
Look, he has worked. That's a fact. Look why he has worked, and then draw your own conclusion.
Yeah.
But that whole coming out of the woodwork just to be morally superior, out of your ivory tower of awesomeness, because you contribute to the world so much.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm starting to get a bit tired of that. From coaches that are neither academics or craftsmen, because most of those people don't do shit. And they're not academics, but they're not coaches. Or they don't coach, they haven't done that much either.
And because in this context, I would say about Mike is that Mike is both.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Yeah.
Is Mike can process all the data, all the information, but he's going to know, he's
also
approaching this because I need you to get better to be able to do the thing. I'm not just dumping work on you.
He cares about the person because he's actually coaching some.
Yeah.
So instead of all those dudes that don't do, basically that don't contribute, he's actually coaching a number of person. He understands that what matters the most is the person being present. That's the freestyle model in a way. And so if to do that, he has to change the order of exercises or the angle or whatever, and he works, then it's, who cares?
Yeah.
The human is getting better. And at the end, that should be the only thing that matters. And that's where you see the struggle most of the time is off of that. So that Mike is a great guy for that. And then he can explain all the science behind, but the point was he never got stuck on
the specifics,
on the semantics, which could have turned him off of something that is actually working. So there's a guy named David Bohm. I gave you the book. Like he's a theoretical physicist who wrote a book called The Implicate Order. And the beginning of the book is on that because he's talking about Western science, the problem between specialization and fragmentation. And that's why we see now specialization means you specialize in physics or quantum mechanics. Fragmentation is you take one part of that is that big, and that's all you focus on. And when you do that, you lose complete context of what was happening.
So as someone who, if you do have a very specialized area, you still always have to take that step back to find context then.
To remember what is it supposed to do in the first place.
Gotcha.
It's taking the Da Vinci models. One wheel turns left, the other one turns right, and at the end the arms goes up and down, right? If you take one of those wheels by itself and you study what it does, that wheel only turns left. If you forget what the model was doing, which was the arm was going up and down, you might be tempted to look and go, yeah, the world goes left. The model goes left, which the model doesn't go left, it goes up and down, because that's only one of the pieces of the whole machines. But people start to get into focusing only on that one, and welcome to human beings and a test negative network, where basically this becomes their reality, where all they know is they know really well what makes this turn left. And now they're going to start arguing with a guy who did the same thing on the one that turns right.
And can you almost blame them for falling into that trap, because it's like, I got $250,000 into this fucking PhD.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I went into this thing.
You know what the problem is? The $250,000 in the PhD, the other guy that studies the wheel that goes right, he has it as well.
Yeah.
And so now you're both talking about a different wheel of the same model,
same mechanism,
right? And you're both wrong, because you're still not looking at the fact that they're supposed to work together, not against each other. But because politics and that's the academic world as well, right? There's an issue there. They end up basically talking about whether the wheel goes left or wheel goes right, completely losing context of what the model is supposed to do in the first place. None of the fitness world or sports should be taken away from what is the athlete doing. If he's burning out, if he's not performing at his best because of whatever reason, that's the only thing that should be looked at. But that's not what the study says. The study says that if you give him 20 more grams of chicken, then his synthesis will be this. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean he'll have more muscle. Okay, but in what sense is it? I mean, so nothing is integrated. So then it's fragmentation, not specialization. Specialization is taking care of athletes. Fragmentation is taking care of a physio fixing the shoulder, but not the movement pattern. That's the best way I can explain it. Right? You fix a shoulder, not the movement pattern, guess what? He's going to go right back to his sport, to his improper movement pattern, get the shoulder hurt again. You need to bring him back to the physio. The physio fixes it again. Okay, but in the meantime, you're not training, you're not getting better, you're in pain. That shoulder hurts every time you snatch, so you don't want to snatch anymore. So now you're missing a training session here and there. You're not putting as much energy into it as you should, and before you know it, you're not as good as you should be. So now instead of first, you're third. But in the meantime, hey, the physio can say, hey, I did my job, which is true, by the way.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not his job to fix the movement pattern. I'm like, all right, but then whose is it? Because the other dude is also the position coach of the Olympic weightlifting. Is like, well, put your hips under it. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And then, but the athlete is left going like, so that's up to the athlete to know what to do. Yeah, okay, but that dude is tired. First of all, he's been told since he's 6 years old what to do at every step of the way. And he's been told by 5 different people, usually conflicting information. And at the end of the day, he's tired, he's beat up to shit, his shoulder hurts, and you're telling him to go find a way to fix it.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, is depending on how these things are communicated too, is that like you can have all of the best information, but and how you present it to a person, if it doesn't move them to that point, it doesn't matter. And if you can't, here's a good example. This is a thing that I do way too often as a parent, right? This is like my biggest. I can know exactly what my son needs to do, son or daughter needs to do, but I may get a little short with my temper sometimes when they don't pick up on it quickly enough, right?
I know the feeling.
But I know this. I can feel this as it starts to run away from me a little bit. Not that I'm not flying out of control, but I can feel what their reaction is now they're trying to make sure that they're not pissing me off, and then they're not worried about the thing that I'm trying to teach them.
And they're not learning it.
And then it snowballs into this. You know, the best example is we go skiing, which I don't know how to fucking ski, and neither does Lincoln. And my wife, and bless Toby's heart, is a ski instructor. They were there, so I got some of the basics, but we're on this little little hill, right?
Yeah, when it gets steeper.
And what happens, and I caught it then, because after the first little bit, there's like 3 of us trying to do the thing, but there's other people watching, and it's this whole thing, and he's struggling with it. He's falling, and he's mad, and he can't get his shit back on, and it has nothing to do with how the skiing is going. You know what I mean? It only has to do with this, like, he thinks Dad's gonna flip the fuck out, because he's like, come on, dude, we gotta go to the big hill today. And this isn't the way that I don't handle this I handle this one the right way. I don't normally do this, so I'm not the best.
Yeah.
But the way I handled this one was, I was like, Megan told me, listen, we got enough to work with right now, so you guys go to your skiing, because you want to go skiing. I don't blame you. The longer you wait here, the more he's going to feel that you want to be going. And so I just told Lincoln, I said, let's take a break. We'll go right over there. We'll get some coffee. We'll hang out. And no, so we went there and sat and shot the shit for like an hour and a half. And then I just told him, I said, listen, we don't have to get up to the big, because his fear was he's going to suck at this thing.
Yeah, and then
and then we're going to raise the stakes even more and more people. And the whole thing was on top of him. So the solution was, all right, here's what we're going to do. Today, we don't leave that little hill. And that's it. So we're going to sit here, and whenever you're ready, like, so we just talked, and he's like, can I go try that again? Yeah. And then sure as shit, then he's into learning it and less worried about all of the other things. Which, when you talk about coaching somebody, are you trying to get them to show you something?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you trying to get them to interpret you know what I mean? Like give you the thing that you told them, or are you really trying to make them be better? And it's 2 very different things. Say, had I handled that wrong, right? If I handled it the way I sometimes tend to, I'm just trying to be right. Like, I told you the thing, just do the thing.
No, but plus, like, you could have got him on top of the hill, and he would have made it down. Maybe not in one piece, but he would have made it down. And at the end, what you say was going to happen, happened. Except there was no learning. He's disgusted with skiing. He never wants to do it. And but at the end, that was the intent of the day. Was a family day where everybody skis and enjoys it.
Yeah.
Right.
The top of that big hill was never the point.
It was not the intent. It was never. But we see that in workouts a lot. Like I was making that point with food, right, in the last episode.
Yes.
But I've seen that happen with movement as well. You're gonna have to be honest with yourself on that one, if it's you or not. But I realized I was doing it sometimes on certain things as well. Where I'm at the global gym, and I've noticed that Dutchmen here are not the most necessarily secure people ever. Like, women here, they want it. They're like this. They run the show. You can tell.
Yeah.
Men are fairly insecure, I've noticed. And the global gym, more than anybody, they're all fairly skinny. They have no lats. Did you notice?
I noticed.
Less running, more lats. That's the best hashtag ever, by the way. And I'm watching them do like all the shit with the leg forward, like all those functional exercises. And of course, there's a Bosu ball. And the dude is doing the curl like this, and then the stuff like that, and everything. And it hit me that they are trying to look like bodybuilders doing it. And you can tell, especially with the kids, by that I mean 18, 20, I'm old now, that that's what they're training for. They're training to get the feeling that they are badasses because they look like bodybuilders doing the movement.
Yeah.
But are you doing that just like food becomes a way to not act? I think people train a certain way or do stuff basically as a way to not actually do the thing. What do I mean by that? Is they all doing the movement just like Kai Green or Jay Cutler would. They're all doing this because that's what Jay Cutler...
Because the thing is moving from A to
B and everything, and they look the part. But at the end, the muscle didn't work. So what did you do for an hour?
Nothing.
You didn't do shit.
You wore out some tendons.
Yeah, basically. Or you made yourself, maybe you made yourself feel like you were a badass. And that was the point of your... How long before that's the point of your workout?
Yeah.
How long before the intent of the workout, instead of being like, I'm going to develop those muscles and be Kai Green, and actually be, I don't know if you can be 5'6" and 320 pounds of lean muscle, but that's another problem.
If you can, let me know.
Yeah, because I have a career for you. But at what point basically are you going to the gym to make yourself feel a certain way instead of doing the work? We do that that's the third option in the Freestonian model, right? Yep. Where you change your sensory input. Are you going to the gym And instead of moving correctly, changing your sensory input is in like having that scenario playing through your head, going like, I'm a badass, look at what I do, I'm a badass. And that becomes the intent of the workout.
Because then as you, like, if you do anything long enough, you should get better at it.
So you'll get better at lying to yourself about being a badass.
Exactly,
yeah.
but which means that then at some point, you're going to fucking wreck your shit.
No,
right?
but what it means
you
is
don't
that means
move
you're
well,
2 years...
You're doing 200, you're just trying to,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And 2 years later, you haven't made progress, you still look like shit, but what you're really good at is lying to yourself about being a badass.
And
playing that movie in your head. That's what you became good at.
The question is, I would ask you, is that from time to time as a training intent is not bad? Is it?
If it makes you feel better about yourself once in a while to raise your confidence level.
You had mentioned, I'm afraid, we have so many between Q&As and mentoring calls. I don't remember if we talked about this in the last podcast.
So let's talk about it.
But I want to ask you again.
If we have talked about it, sorry, you're going to listen to us again.
Is you mentioned with Michael Mann that it still was important for you when someone
was not on the podcast. Yeah.
Okay, when someone comes in.
So there's a difference there.
Deconditioned.
So there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right there is maybe it was on a podcast.
Who knows?
Shit. Anyway, Michael Mann basically, the important part was, that he kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
So he had every time he finished a session, he felt like a badass, and that kept him coming back.
Yeah.
So there was a very important part there, right? But what he was basing his feeling like a badass also is the way he looked, the amount of weight, that he was starting to get better, the movement itself. So you might need that at first. It's like memorization in order to get yourself back into the gym as a blue belt, right? And if that's what takes to bring you back to training, then so be it. And maybe, by the way, that's the only goal you have out of training, is feeling like a badass for an hour. I have no problem with that.
But then you can't complain that you're not as big as Kai Green in the end.
Exactly. Yeah. But that means you will stay a blue belt. Like, for example, Michael Mann was never going to compete. He's never going to do an overhead squat. There's so much stuff he's not going to do. And that's okay, because that was never the intent. He wanted to be healthy and around when his kid turns 40, which means he's 85. So health was the point. And this is someone who's never trained, right? And so I had to keep coming in, getting him back.
So the training has to feel rewarding and good.
So the first 2 years, he better feel like a badass because we're not doing shit. But by year three,
chip away a little bit.
By year 3, year 4, he's lapping an 80 kilo sandbag and squatting it for 3 reps. And I was like, shit, that is impressive.
Yeah.
Now he's a badass, right? But so his feeling of being a badass eventually
turned into him being a badass.
But him turning a badass, right? At some point, you're going to have to look in the mirror.
And that's because he did the work.
He did the work.
Yeah.
And he also go like, am I making progress? Like, all that stuff. So we did a good job with him.
If he stopped making progress, I think that badass feeling would have gone away.
Yeah, or at least like getting leaner or more muscly or whatever. But at some point, it would have been an issue, right? So the key is at first is necessary to keep coming. So you're 18, 19. You want to feel like you're going to be Jack Cutler one day? I love you. So did I. I followed, by the way, I made all mistakes. I'm not saying I didn't, trust me. I followed Dorian Yates' program, not to the poundage, unfortunately, but to the rep for like a year and a half. What did I do? Nothing. Didn't get much out of it, that's for sure, but I did it.
You suffered a lot, though.
Yeah, but in my mind, I was going to be Dorian Yates one day. Right?
Yeah.
This is so obvious. So I get that, and that scenario that you create in your head is very important because that's called passion.
Yeah.
It feeds that thing inside of you, and it turns you into who you might be someday. That's being a blue belt.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But at some point, if you want to be a purple belt, okay, that's when that reward of feeling awesome should come out of your accomplishment and not out of you turning your training into something else. Like at some point, your training has to generate muscle. Otherwise,
yeah, you're just spinning your wheels then.
Then you're just lying to yourself.
Well, plus, we've mentioned in the past that you have to become the person
exactly
who is that,
and
right?
Guess what? Michael Mann became the guy who could squat a lap at 80 kilo sandbag and squat it 3 times. The dude weighed 160.
Yeah, that wasn't just a skill that he now had. He
was
had
heavier than him.
practice and chipped it away and done the work.
Yeah, exactly. No, so he became the guy he wanted to become. Like, so he had that image in mind, but he worked his way there.
Which becoming that also requires a full, really, you view your entire lifestyle, your day to day, your month to month, year to year, as a system. right? And so we mentioned in the past, you want to look like Jay Cutler. You can't just do his training and his eating, because look at his lifestyle.
Yeah, and how long does he be doing
the sleeping, so yes, if you want to do that, for sure, but you need to start somewhere between where you are and where he would have been.
You want to be Jay Cutler, you have to become Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
You don't get to. That's the problem.
And the whole system has to take that. Which means if I look at somebody who just wants to, I don't know, say someone wants to start training, like off the blue, want to lose 40 pounds, right? That person comes into my gym. My concerns are I have to change their entire system over time, which means they do need to start eating better. They do need to start sleeping better. They need to come training. They need to train well, effectively. They need to enjoy training, and they need to also enjoy their life. Like overall, the stress can't be too high.
They can't keep looking in the mirror and hating themselves every second of every day.
Which means that what I can't do is all of those things right now. Yeah. And so sometimes what you have to do is like, all right, what's the first piece I want to move forward? So sometimes like, all right, well, I have gym. Yep. So with that opportunity, what I want to do is I want you to come in and I want you to have fun.
Yeah, okay, so
you enjoy coming, and then I can start working.
The first thing that has to go, you know what it is that perfect program of yours.
Yeah.
That's what has to go. The first thing that goes is that, because that perfect program of yours is perfect in a vacuum, in isolation, and it's somebody else's program. And you're going to force that dude into that program, which is basically you forcing Lincoln to go to the top of the mountain
because
and never
I wanted to see the view, right?
And because never enjoying skiing again.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with this. It's like first thing you do is you throw the program away.
Yeah. You know, you've mentioned this. This actually is the thing that goes back to something we've talked about in the past, anyways, as a coach. Is the Yoda thing. Yeah. It's about what you bring into the cave. Yeah. Right?
It was, Luke is starting his training as a Jedi on Dagobah.
By the way, Luke Skywalker is definitely a terrorist, right? By the definition.
Right. So let's talk about Luke Skywalker first of all.
Right.
So let's
radicalized.
Okay, so let's explain it. He's a farm boy from a very distant place, right? Whose family is killed by a vast, powerful,
we'll call it an
empire, far more technologically advanced than he's at, so that he had very little contact with because he's on the fringe of civilization.
Yep.
Once his family is being murdered for a reason he does not understand, he's being radicalized by someone he knows who makes him follow an old religion that fell out of practice. And once he's being radicalized by that representative of an old religion, right, and being made to hate the empire who did murder his family.
Don't blame him.
Don't blame him, right?
Based on his circumstances.
He's going to start to take arms and join the rebellion to fight said empire.
Yeah.
So Luke is from Iraq.
Yep. So Star Wars.
Just saying.
Star Wars, American foreign policy. Right there. Figure it out, guys.
You know what I like the most is, out of all of you Americans out there, who do you think the US represents? Everybody's going to say, well, Luke.
Right.
Obviously, we're not the empire, we're the rebellion. Yeah.
But anyway.
It's an American movie. Every time I watch it, I'm like, guys, do you understand who you are in the fucking thing? Because people in Iraq, like, I kid you not, there was a ex-CIA agent who talked like, they all think they're Luke.
Yeah. Could you blame them?
Right? Family gets murdered by technology more advanced. So every country I've ever thinks they're Luke, and it's fun. Anyway, so Luke is with Yoda on Dagobah, right? So that's where Yoda is hiding from the Emperor, and they're about to, so they're doing the Jedi training, and Luke sees a cave that looks very scary and asks Yoda, "What is that?" And Yoda says, basically, this is where the dark side of the Force resides. And that Luke must go in there. And Luke asks him, what will I find in that cave? And Yoda famously answers, whatever you bring with you. And that to me has always been the powerful image of a coach. Is like, you have to understand that coaching is that. It's what you have to be careful. You bring in that dark cave, whatever you bring with you in that dark cave will take shape.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you bring into your coaching your own ego, your own your own validation, like
your own attachments to your program, your experience.
Your program, for example, your program, what a squat should look like, right? Stuff like that, what you've been told, which means like keep your back straight or whatever. You will bring, if you bring in your coaching that, you turn to the dark side of the force, because you will force your people into things that are not good for them. They're good for you, or at least for your ego, but they might not be good for them. And that's the dark side of the force. And it's so easy to fall into that.
And that's the thing, is as easy as it is to fall into. As a person who looks like I do and trains the way I do, still owned a CrossFit gym and coached. Yep. So I had to be so cognizant of that, and still didn't win all the time, of being like, listen guys, like you guys are doing an excessive amount of conditioning that maybe is working against some of your goals. If you're trying to get bigger, maybe don't come here 7 days a week, or maybe just come 3 or 4 for the conditioning and the strength work. And if you're gonna do extra stuff, like more conditioning, I wouldn't recommend. Or maybe more sleep instead of more training in front of you. And so, but I couldn't. I had to be careful always of where that was coming from, because I believe that I'm right.
You don't have to. I'd be like, you don't need to do conditioning.
Yes, but the truth is in a lot of those cases, and especially where we're from in the Midwest, what those people needed to do at first, or for a really long time, was to build a habit and want to come
to the gym.
That's it. You know, like you're never going to go to work at 8 a.m. if you never start waking up before noon. You know what I'm saying? So let's get you in the gym, and then let's get you in the gym, and then we're gonna start doing. So that was okay.
By the way, that's what a program is. Let's be honest. Like just like macros, right? Is a way to create eating habits, and that's it. A program is about creating lifting habits. 84 versus 85% at all epoxy training. That's all bullshit, because depending on the day, you're not.
80% is not 80%.
It's not 80%
it's not the same number all week.
Okay, so let me, for example, like. Let's go over conditioning and then heart rate and all those changes before I can go back to this. Your heart rate is at 170, so therefore you're in this energy system and everything. No, that's not true. Let me explain to you why. There's 2 ways to get to 170 heart rate, right? You have the one where you go into, you basically start, you keep control of your breathing, right? You keep control of your skill at running. I don't know how or why, but that's another problem. Your skill at running, and you can basically run, and then you get your pace going, and your heart rate is at 170, right? You're running fairly fast, obviously, but you have control of your breathing. Your face is relaxed. You're in full control of your vagus nerve. That means you can basically, even though you're running very fast, you can keep your heart rate at 170 because you're in control of it.
It's not doing this.
Exactly, it's doing this. So you have control, because that's what the vagus nerve controls, is your capacity to control your heart rate. You can maintain that for very long, right? If you're a skilled runner.
By you mean?
Not me.
You, not me.
You guys, not me. I don't even want the skill, thank you. But now you have the 170 where you go sympathetic. You freak out. You have learned to swim in a pool, and then suddenly you're at the ocean, you look at the ocean, you go, and now your heart rate is at 170. That is not the same shit at all. Because now that you swim, but you're swimming panicking, your heart rate is at 170. That is not a heart rate you can maintain. From 170, within 5 minutes, you're gonna start freaking out, and then suddenly you shut off and then you drown. Why? Because in one case 1, you had control of your vagus nerves, case 2, you did not, because you panicked. That means you're in a parasympathetic state at 170 versus a sympathetic state at 170. Your body doesn't react the same way at all, at all. Muscles, tone is different, everything is different. Everything is different at 170 in parasympathetic versus 170 in sympathetic. So do not tell me it's the same energy system. It is not. It is not. Bullshit. So basing your training on 170 is, sorry, that's not the way it works. So that perfect epoxy training and this and that to get, no, not that it's not for 170, but you get what I'm saying. Like that training based on a 170 heart rate is useless, because the state you're in at 170 is what matters the most.
So you're better off learning to control your state, because the heart rate's going to follow along anyways.
Exactly. So that's what the program is for. The program is to create lifting habits. A good program will basically teach you to control your heart rate. And it will teach you to come back tomorrow and do some more stuff. It'll teach you to take rest days when you need to.
And hopefully it'll buy you the time and the exposure to learn how.
But that's all this is. So it's to create lifting, training habits.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what a program is for. That's it. It's just like macros. It is after that when the problem becomes like those people basically justifying the program they're either creating, selling, or following, where they go like, well, look what it does. Look, the science says 170 heart rate for 10 minutes creates that. No, in isolation, in the proper state that you can't reach, and yeah, it might, but because we have control of you don't have control of any of those variables. You do not, this program cannot apply to you because you don't know how to keep your state correctly for that heart rate and stuff like that. So that stuff in isolation that they're just selling you or making you follow might not be what's proper for you at all because you don't have the training habits necessary to follow it the way is designed to be.
Yeah, it's almost like, and I believe in a lot of those cases because those things are science-based. So it's not like they are inherently wrong in the context of what they're done.
Isolation.
Exactly, and what I mean by that is
yes, but they are right.
Is that they are right?
It is correct,
right?
Yeah. But it doesn't apply to you.
And because that's not where you are, which means somehow those two things take that information, but take the context. There's missing context in here.
Exactly.
You need to bring this person into this world. You cannot just take this and dump it on them.
Exactly.
It doesn't fucking work.
It won't work like that. Because
well, let's rephrase that. It will work until it doesn't.
Yeah, so it works.
You know what I mean?
But again, because why? Because that program creates some good training habits.
Certainly.
So it's going to make them, it's going to push them a little bit harder, whatever. The key is going to try them to acquire a skill. It's just they might not be ready for that. So it might work for 4 weeks and then they'll start crashing. So my biggest problem is because we take that thing that works in isolation that is not necessarily designed for that person, when this breaks that person, we say, well, that was your problem.
Yeah.
You didn't do what I said, or this, or this, or that, and that's what the problem is.
And that, like that Yoda quote about you're going to find what you bring into the cave. You know,
it's a craft.
And I do agree that I think that when people get into those arguments over semantics, or oh, it was this word, but you know what I mean. It's like we need to be better than that because you're just coming in looking to defend a thing when I would rather have people approach those things trying to communicate.
Also, by the way, the truth of all this is you're not an academic. The real academics understand the limitations of what they do and say it, right?
Yeah.
The most people that are out there arguing stuff, unless they're either defending their business or they're not academics.
Yeah.
Like I've yet to see academics that outside of selling something, right, are ready to go to war with semantics without trying to understand the intent behind. I mean, there's always assholes, don't get me wrong. But most of the stuff out there is done by people that are not academics, that are on the coaching side. And if you're a coach, you have to understand that you're a craftsman.
You should understand that even better than the academic.
You should because
your job is apply.
Your job is to apply.
Yeah.
Your job is to apply to people. That's a craft.
Yeah.
You're a craftsman. You're not an academic.
It's the difference between the guy designing the paint to work the best, to be the best paint, versus the guy that's out painting your fucking house for you. Or, you know what I mean?
Or painting a work of art.
Exactly.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
You're basically Leonardo da Vinci. So did he need good paint to? Of course he did. And there's someone who's going to make the paint. But the guy making the paint cannot draw.
And that guy certainly making the paint has no business telling Leonardo da Vinci which way is up.
Exactly.
Like,
so
listen, I'm going to take your thing, your tools.
Exactly.
Right? And I'm going to make this thing out.
Leonardo da Vinci gets to tell him, I would like the blue to be a bit thicker next time or stuff like that. And then the guy does his magic and delivers exactly what Leonardo da Vinci wanted. Right? Yeah. That's a separation of roles. But that guy with a paint don't get to tell the other, you should use a lighter blue.
Yeah.
No. It's not that.
And it is important too that in even in this context with Leonardo da Vinci painting, creating art and all those things, what goes on the canvas is not even as important. That's the issue. Okay, he can paint, he can make the thing, and he can do all the things with it, and it can look the way it looks. But that is not the why it did not get made either to sit and exist in a vacuum.
Exactly.
Which means that whole thing has to now create a feeling and a reaction from someone who is watching it. And does the guy creating the paint, because this color is thicker or more, he doesn't have any fucking idea how this is going to be interpreted in the context of the whole.
The dude who gets a reaction out of the painting might not even know the technical part that goes into it.
And I'm certain he doesn't care.
Or even the painting itself. They might not know the how technically proficient Leonardo da Vinci was or stuff like that. He just has a reaction to the painting or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you failed. I don't care how technically correct you were. I don't care if the dude put the right amount of magnesium in the paint. If it's not the right paint, not expressed correctly, it's a fail.
Yeah. Like, when was the last time you listened to a song that moved you or created a feeling?
And it's not
and
music.
You don't understand about any of it. You don't know what key it's in.
What
percentage of people that enjoy music know what key that song is in? Very little, right? So does the listener, the person doing the experiencing,
is he wrong?
That it's created for? Am I wrong because I like that song because
or don't
slightly
like that song.
out of key? Or
are you wrong because you didn't like the song?
Yeah.
And the guy comes, but it's perfect. Yeah, but I didn't like it.
It's just not mine.
Yeah, but that's because you don't know
Some
anything.
people might.
Yeah.
That works for them. It doesn't work for me. And so I think as a coach, I don't want to take this analogy too far, but think of yourself more as an artist, as you're trying to create a reaction in the person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you deal with humans.
Yeah.
And that is a craft. And by the way, it's a very hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's going to require a lot out of you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need to integrate nutrition, physiology, some knowledge of. So by the way, do you need to know some of this? Of course you do, otherwise you won't be a good coach. But you just don't have to be at an academics level.
Yeah.
You don't need a PhD in nutrition, you don't need a PhD in this. What you have to have is basically a PhD in results.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to have. Their job is to have a PhD on the chemical stuff. Your job as a coach is to have a PhD in results.
Mm-hmm. That's
what your job is. You're going to have to integrate some of the knowledge that they have, not all of it, but some of it. And then after that, hone your skill until you can deliver all that into a way that people can absorb and thrive on.
Yeah.
And that's what your PhD should be about.
Yeah, because a musician doesn't create music, they create a feeling in a person.
Yeah.
Same thing with an artist, doesn't just paint, he creates a feeling in the person.
Otherwise it's just colors on the wall.
And as a coach, you're not creating movement, you're creating feeling, and you're creating a better person in the end.
And that to me is the stuff we talk about the most lately, is you are changing the person in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your job is, right? You're going to make him into that person who's 40 kilo lighter. And to be 40 kilo lighter, you need to change far more than just a food intake. They're going to have to, by the way, you lose 10 kilos, your body will hate you. They're going to have to learn to deal with that. They're going to have, in order to lose 40 kilos, like anybody I've ever talked to that lost more than 50 kilos, right, can always tell you the day they were successful, because that's the day they decided to, okay, that's it. Mm-hmm. Right? Before that, they tried diets or stuff like that, 5 years, 10 years. Yeah. But they can all tell you the one day they decided to truly do it. It's like a near-death experience. Like they always remember the day and they remember the emotion. Yeah. Every time they tell me it's two things, ashamed or afraid of dying. Mm-hmm. And they have that emotional response, just like a near-death experience. It's literally that strong for them, and they can always remember the date.
And I think it's important too that feeling, right?
Yep.
Whether it's the shame or the fear of dying, that moment that they're experiencing is immediately, it is a willingness now to change themselves. Yep. That's the thing. It's not like, all right, I'm willing to do this. It's like okay. I don't want to be the person. Exactly. I don't want to be the person who dies at 40.
Exactly.
I don't want to be the person who's ashamed of this anymore.
Of their body or whatever. Exactly. Yeah. So that's the
so feeling the shame is very different than wanting to now be the person who doesn't feel that shame.
Exactly. Maybe it is a near-death experience. Maybe they killed their old self and decided to be a new person. Mm-hmm. And that's, as your coach, that's basically what your job is, to help them to become that new person. And it goes far more than that 80%.
Yeah.
So much more. And I think most coaches, that's where their passion comes from, is they understand how deep their work goes.
Yeah.
Right? I think they know they're changing people's lives, and I believe they truly are. Like I've said that in podcasts where I think we are the chosen people as coaches, because we get to influence people's lives more than anybody else. Yeah. The things we can do, right? I think no one else does. And so that's why I get frustrated by the condescending assholes out there that want to argue semantics, or the certain academics or fake academics that jump into this to sell stuff, to basically just game the system, because they're taking the place of truly passionate people that are in there to change people's lives and succeeding at it as well. Mm-hmm. Like, so it offends me as a human being sometimes what I see happening to the fitness world, because we're doing good but we can do better.
Yeah, definitely. We can definitely do better. So I think that's got us about at our mark here. Let's go over the fun stuff. So, StrongFit1 on Instagram. That's Julian. I am Tyler F. Stone on Instagram. The things we want you to check out. On Facebook, follow StrongFit on Facebook. Join the StrongFit community if you're watching this. StrongFit community is on Facebook, free, no other thing. It's just a good place where everybody's having these types of conversations. So if you have questions, communal intelligence is Julian's jam. Always. And that's the spot where we have a lot of people who've been working for this for a long time. So if you're just kind of getting in and want to figure out how do I make this work for me, that's the spot.
Yeah, no question.
Everything else, it can be found at strongfit.com. We still travel to seminars. Yep. We have nutrition groups, training groups. There's online workshops. There's in-person workshops. I got shit written down. We have all sorts of things. We got shirts. We have equipment. We have everything. So if you are in Europe, you can go to strongfitequipment.eu. If you're just hunting for sandbags and shirts like that one, you can get that at strongfitequipment.com or strongfitequipment.eu. Big pecs.
Cash checks.
That's right. This one's no more, right? We don't have this one anymore?
Oh, we're getting the new one in Europe. We did.
We're going to
have it right here. Yeah, nice. We just ordered them.
Nice. Very nice. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next week.